Hi, my name is Angela Lussier, and I am a victim of family court corruption. Let me tell you a little bit about it. In 2010, my then 8-year-old granddaughter was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. She was hospitalized 4 times because of the medication she was on and the tactile sensitivity that she was experiencing due to the fact that she actually had Asperger's syndrome. In April of 2010, my second grandbaby was born. Why am I raising my grandchildren? Because my daughter has a learning disability and is not able to parent. She got together with a man a little bit older than her, and the two of them got on drugs together, or she ended up on drugs. He was on drugs already, as far as I know. So that's why I'm raising them. I've had my older granddaughter since she was a year old. My grandbaby in April came home to my home from the hospital, and I raised her from the time she was born till 6 months of age. What happened was, my daughter's boyfriend is an immigrant from Afghanistan. I am a left-wing Quaker Christian, so believe me when I say I embrace all people. And these are not bad people, this couple who my daughter's boyfriend wanted to give his child to. He basically manufactured a child to gift to his brother. I didn't believe that right away, but at 5 months pregnant, he told me he wanted to give my grandbaby to his brother, who, because he's an immigrant from Afghanistan with a felony record, and his wife is an immigrant from Mexico, neither one of them citizens, and again, this is no judgment on them. They are not bad people. However, he, along with CPS, and me as a grandmother with no rights, had I committed a crime, I would have had more rights. Had I committed a crime, had I committed child abuse or neglect, I would have had a voice. I would have had a case. But because I'm the grandmother and I did nothing wrong, the only people who had a case was the mother and father. Even though the mother and father never raised this baby. It was me and her sister who loved her and adored her. Again, this couple, they are not bad people. However, they never came to the hospital to see the baby. They never called me to ask about the baby. But when Deborah Manor from Chatsworth, DCFS, decided to take my grandchild and place her in foster care, well, they were right there. The whole thing was a ruse to get them in the life of my granddaughter, my grandbaby. Originally, I was able to keep her. This started at about 2 months old. She was placed with me officially. I never asked for help. I was not interested in any money, even though I would be considered at this point in time low income, because since my older granddaughter was hospitalized so many times, I lost my job in 2010 and ended up having to take a 70% cut in pay. What I've learned is that money is everything, and that sacrifice and dedication means nothing. Had these people not had the money, had this person been single, would they have stepped up? I don't know. But I did, because there's nothing greater and there's nothing more rewarding than taking care of a child and helping a child and nurturing a child and holding a baby in your arms. I love my grandchildren. Both my grandchildren have been traumatized by CPS. When she was 6 months old, Elise Campbell, who had originally tried to take my older granddaughter and place her in residential, doing me a favor, she told me at an emergency room, she said, "Oh, you're a grandmother, you shouldn't have to deal with this. You should be enjoying your life." let's put her in residential. You'll be part of her life for a long time. I said, no, thank you. But she went ahead and scheduled a TDM. At that TDM, they told me Rosie Mercado, who was the facilitator, and Anel Garcia, who was Elise's supervisor, told me, you're a great grandmother. We need more like you. Tell us about the baby, because I had my 2-week-old grandbaby with me. My biggest mistake was being honest and telling them what the situation was with Mom and Dad. Even though it already stepped up, even though I had this, they made a referral. And because my daughter and her boyfriend's address was in North Hollywood, the referral went to Chatsworth. So Deborah Manor and Arena Cole, her supervisor, took my grandbaby. The judge returned her originally. However, they ended up placing her with this uncle and aunt who had previously not been eligible to adopt because of their citizenship and the felony record. But CPS waived that felony. Again, these are not bad people. And had I not had this, and had I been somewhere else in heaven looking down, I would be happy because I don't judge them. He could be innocent for all I know, but I question their process. I was a therapeutic foster parent. I've been a child advocate since I was 13 years old. I have worked in abuse and neglect shelters. I have had a long film career that I sacrificed for my older grandchild. And I was happy to do that. I want to go through a little bit of the letters that were written on my behalf by professionals. Okay? Not only was she taken and given to somebody else at 6 months of age when she had never been sick one day in her life, and immediately upon removal, she became chronically ill and remains so to this day. She is now 2.5 years old. Thank you. Let me just look at these. This is a letter from my older granddaughter's therapist. As I said, she was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder when she actually had Asperger's. Given the wrong treatment, that's what led to her hospitalizations and her outbursts, her meltdowns at school. This was all school related. She didn't have problems at home so much as she did at school. Her therapist writes in July of 2010, Hannah's school setting was changed and services were added thanks to Hannah's grandmother's dedication and advocacy for her granddaughter's needs. And then a little later, I'm not going to read you the whole thing because it would be too much. It is my opinion that the addition of her baby sister to the family dynamic was an important part of this successful equation, as Hannah was able to take the role of big sister rather than identified patient. Hannah's grandmother is probably the most tenacious and effective advocate I have ever had the pleasure of working with, and I hope that grandmother's efforts to gain permanent custody of Hannah's baby sister is successful. Excuse me. This letter is from my older granddaughter's psychiatrist. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. I'm just going to read the last part. I have witnessed the interaction of Hannah with her baby sister Morgan, and I believe that Angela, their grandmother, has shown remarkable nurturance, firmness, comfort, and watchfulness with both of these girls simultaneously. I believe she has been heroic and competent in her commitment to these girls. I also believe that it would be a tragic loss to all involved to remove Morgan from the family at this time. I declare that the foregoing is true, and that should I be called to testify in court, I could and would testify as such. And let me tell you, yes, it was tragic. Hannah, my older granddaughter's psychiatrist after Dr. Ben left, wrote that Hannah's symptoms are controlled because she was now diagnosed with the correct diagnosis. Hannah's symptoms are controlled and could have likely been completely controlled in the past. This is a letter from UCLA from Dr. Alexis Adams. There has been no history of Hannah behaving inappropriately toward Morgan, aggressively or otherwise. Hannah's caretaker, Angela, met with us several times during Hannah's stay, and there was no evidence that Hannah's home situation was at all inappropriate for her. Angela is clearly invested in both Hannah and Morgan and was committed to following our recommendations for Hannah's post-discharge. One such recommendation was the consideration of an alternative educational environment, as Hannah has relative deficits in specific academic areas that would benefit from increased support. Angela proceeded with identifying an appropriate school to which Hannah transitioned after discharge. This letter comes from Sylvie D. Toledo, who is a saint, number one. Number two, she is the director of Grandparents as Parents, a group of which I belong to. I'm going to read just the last part. In addition to her obvious dedication over the years to her granddaughter Hannah, as well as her vigilant response to Morgan's needs and obvious bond with her, make her the most suitable placement for Morgan. I have had the opportunity of observing Angie's interactions with her granddaughters on a weekly basis as she brings them to group. In addition, she and the girls attend the monthly family social activities sponsored by our organization. The girls are always appropriately dressed for the weather and that particular event they are attending. The older child, despite her challenges, has always been very polite with me. She is very bonded to her grandmother as well as to her baby sister, with whom I have seen her be very gentle, loving, and caring. She enjoys holding, feeding, and talking to her under the nurturing and watchful supervision of her grandmother. Morgan is thriving in the care of her grandmother. I have seen her weekly, and she is very well cared for by Angie. Even in the most challenging of times, I have seen Angie interact with only patience and love for her granddaughters. It is my professional opinion that Morgan should be placed back in the home of her grandmother immediately. This child deserves to grow up with her sister in the home of their grandmother, as it appears that their mother is unable to care for them at the present time. Angie has had legal guardianship of her 8-year-old granddaughter since she was a year old. Now, when it comes to the lies, let me tell you a little bit about the lies, the perjury that social workers present to the court on a daily basis, minute by minute, not a daily basis, an hourly basis. They lie more than they tell the truth. I don't know if they ever tell the truth. As a matter of fact, I say, Deborah Manor, you don't have a hole in your face for the truth to come out. One day, after the baby was returned to me from foster care, per the judge, she returned her from a visit with the uncle and aunt, because this was all underway, okay? She left the stroller downstairs, and she gave me the car seat with Morgan inside. I had been told by the judge, per county council, not to leave the two of them alone unsupervised. Well, of course, I would never leave either one of them alone unsupervised. However, it was specific that the two of them not be left alone together. So I waited until Morgan fell asleep so that I could take Hannah with me downstairs. We lived in a small apartment building, about the size of a large house, and you're going downstairs to the living room. Went down the stairs with Hannah and the baby monitor to retrieve the stroller. Deborah Manor had apparently been waiting 45 minutes in her car. She submitted to the court in a report that I had left Hannah upstairs alone with Morgan. This is a letter from my neighbor, notarized. I'm not going to give you her name, but I'll read what she wrote. I saw a woman return Angela Lussier's infant granddaughter and leave a stroller on the sidewalk. About 30 to 40 minutes later, I saw Angela and her other granddaughter, Hannah, come down and put the stroller in Angela's car. She spoke to a neighbor for a minute and returned upstairs. Hannah was with her or playing outside in the courtyard the whole time until Angela returned upstairs to her apartment. This took about 5 minutes. I understand now that the woman was a social worker and has reported to the court that Angela came down to put the stroller in her car alone and left Hannah upstairs with her sleeping baby sister. This is not the case. I live in the same small building and clearly saw Hannah with Angela. Hannah was holding a white object that she later told me was the baby monitor. I declare under penalty of perjury under the state of California that the foregoing is true and correct. Sylvie de Toledo, again, the saint, was with me at a meeting with DCSF where I confronted Deborah Manor about her lie. I'll just read that part. It was at that meeting that Angie brought up the report that was submitted to the court stating that Angie had left Hannah and Morgan upstairs alone, together unsupervised. Angie asked CSW, social worker, Deborah Manor to describe the event. Deborah Manor again stated that she did not see Hannah with Angie when she came downstairs. Angie challenged Deborah Manor regarding her recollection of the incident as not being truthful. And this was in front of everybody. She was not telling the truth. Of course, that's what they do. According to Angie, this was not true. At the time that Angie went downstairs to put the stroller away, Deborah Manor waited a good 40 minutes in her car to watch what happened. Hannah was with her, and she had the baby monitor. Before going downstairs, Angie waited for Morgan to fall asleep. She has a letter written by a neighbor who witnessed the event. Oh, in addition to that lie, because the judge had ordered her returned, she came to pick her up one morning. It was an August morning. It was very hot. It was 8 a.m. Morgan had not yet had a bath. She's bathed daily, but she had not yet at that time. She had just woken up and been fed and changed and not had a bath yet. I sponge bathed her, made sure her neck was clean, her hands were clean, and her feet were clean. I will never forget it. I remember. I was a therapeutic foster parent. I worked on the side of CPS. I never knew what was going on, but I'm not stupid. When I was called to come to the department to discuss my grandbaby's hygiene, I was surprised, to say the least. I walked in. My grandbaby's feet smelled like garlic. Her neck was filthy. And she told me it was my fault. Now, the only way that could have happened was if she dirtied up my child to present to her supervisor. This is the lengths they go to. This is Sylvie continuing. We have known Hannah for many years, and she was always happy and healthy. She was always a happy and healthy, well-adjusted child. She was always a very active child, but very loving and happy. Not until about a year ago did these issues start to come to the surface. As mentioned earlier in this letter, Angie has always been on top of the needs of her grandchildren and is very adept at getting their needs met. In our opinion, we have never seen any behavior on Angie's part which could ever be construed as neglectful or abusive toward her granddaughters. And again, we declare under penalty of perjury that this is true and correct. How did they get her away from me? Well, in September of 2010 was my older granddaughter's last hospitalization. This is when they ruled out bipolar disorder and said she in no way, shape, or form has any kind of bipolar disorder, pediatric or otherwise. She definitely had ADHD, and she had not yet been diagnosed with Asperger's. What had happened one day, before school started in September, I had called the school to try to set up a meeting because transitions are hard and the teacher had changed even though she was in special ed, and I was told that she would have the same teacher for, this year, next year, but the teacher ended up leaving and they had a different teacher. So I was concerned. I knew transitions were hard, so I called and said, can we please have a short meeting just so we can go over what's going to be expected of her, etc. Also, because Hannah has tactile defensiveness, which if you understand anything about autism or Asperger's, their perceptions and their senses are just different than ours, okay? My granddaughter has eagle eye vision. She can see better than anyone I know. As a matter of fact, she has the best recorded vision in her doctor's office. We did not know she had tactile defensiveness. We did not know that because she has ADHD, every time a teacher put their hand on her back, it felt to her like a knife stabbing her. She was under attack for a year. I'd brush by her and she'd give me a dirty look and I'd think, oh, why are you in a bad mood? What's happening? Well, I thought she was exaggerating or what, I didn't know either. But one day, because the school didn't listen to me about having the meeting, they didn't listen to me about PE and the problems, the tactile issues that Hannah had with physical education in some of the activities, not all, but some of the activities. For instance, running laps. That was something that made her legs itch. It's strange, but it's true. She was sent home one day for an afternoon. She was supposed to return the following school day. I called the school and I said, she will not be returning until we have a meeting because perhaps this is not the correct placement for her. Because her anxiety level had risen so high, she was hospitalized. And that was her last hospitalization. And that's when I was told she did not have bipolar disorder. So I got a letter from the principal. Well, actually, I'm sorry, let me go back. In October 7th, 2010, they removed my grandbaby from our household because the Department of Children and Family Services again perjured themselves and said that Hannah had been suspended from the Glendale Unified School District for being so out of control. On the stand, I said, no, she was suspended. Well, I was wrong. She hadn't even been suspended. There was not even any paperwork written up. So this is what I found out after getting this letter from the principal. I will only read the second part, which is relevant. In the time that Hannah attended Mark Keppel Elementary School, she was not suspended, nor was she expelled from our school district. Hannah was transferred to a non-public school per her special education individualized education program placement. And that was at my asking. This is a letter to the judge, Judge David Fields, from my granddaughter. Dear Judge Fields, I love my sister. Every day, I have these pictures of Morgan in my head. I get sad at home because she's not there with me. She is my little piece of love. I know she misses me. She smiles when I play with her at me and Nani's visits. She's the best sister in the world. She's the right sister for me. I really miss her. I would never, ever hurt my little sister. And another letter. I love my sister so much, I will protect her and love her. I would never, ever hurt her. I care about my sister so much. I love to play with my sister. I want to keep my sister because I love her. I told the couple that Deborah Manor wanted to adopt her, although I was happy and willing to adopt her myself. I told them on October 7th, 2010, after my grandbaby's attorney came out and told me that they were going to take the baby and what happened at school. And I explained, and they said, okay, but it was a done deal as far as I knew. I went in there, I was shaken up. I told the couple, I said, because they kept saying, we're here for Morgan, we're here, we just want to protect her. She went to foster care. See, they put her in foster care to legitimize changing her placement and getting somebody else involved. People who, again, are not bad people, they just wanted a baby. And they couldn't get one before. I told them, you're not going to be saving a child, you're just going to be destroying a 9-year-old. Because at this point, she'd had her birthday and she was 9. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that they weren't there at the hospital. It didn't matter that they never called to see how their niece was. It didn't matter. Hannah, outstanding student. Hannah, high honor roll. Hannah, Certificate of Achievement for Citizenship. Citizenship. Now, I was granted monitored visits. Me, a past therapeutic foster parent, in good standing always, never arrested, no drug history, and a lover of children from a very early age. I lost my own sister. I lost my own sister because a dangerous child drowned her. Do you really think that I would let my older grandchild use her baby sister as some kind of chew toy? There was never even any sibling rivalry. All she did was protect her from the sun shining in her eyes. Nani the sun. When I would have her in the car seat and putting her in the car, if I had to turn it around and the sun might catch her. That's how much she loved her sister. So now I have monitored visits. Now we had to try to get monitors. This is a letter from a studio teacher. I've been in the film business for many years, and on my first movie I ever worked on, I met Nancy Newman, a really wonderful person and a studio teacher for many, many years. I won't read the whole thing. Well, I will. As a studio teacher who has taught thousands of children in the industry for the past 26 years, I can verify that Angela Lussier is eminently capable of caring for her granddaughters, Hannah, almost 10, and Morgan, about 1. I have known Angela since 1990 and have seen her interact with her daughter, Sarah, over many years. Sarah was only 9 when I first met them, and Angela was very patient and dedicated. Now I see how much she loves her granddaughters. As I was in town working on a film project and I knew Angela was in need of another reliable monitor, however, I do not understand the need for supervised visits at all, I offered Angela and contacted the caseworker to have me processed, but the worker never returned my calls. Angela has sacrificed very much to provide, first for Hannah and then for Morgan immediately after her birth. She treats her grandchildren, and all children for that matter, in a compassionate, caring manner. I have seen also how important that it is to Hannah's well-being that she have her sister Morgan back home. Her whole world fell apart after her sister she adores was removed from her home. She changed from a happy child to a sad child. It has been heartbreaking to witness. She is clearly more at peace when Morgan is at home. I would urge the court or whoever is reading this letter to return custody of Morgan to Angela so that the family could be whole again. She has a beautiful room prepared for Morgan in her home, and she always has endeavored to meet both her granddaughters' needs. She had Morgan before, and there was no reason to deprive her of custody of her grandchildren. This led to Morgan's becoming sick constantly due to being thrust into a new environment, which is common for infants who cannot verbalize their distress. Removed from these children who are removed from bonded caregivers. The only other time the baby was sick was when she was returned to Angela from foster care. Yes, that's true. She was never sick a day. So she came home from foster care and had an upper respiratory infection. Morgan lights up like a Christmas tree when she sees Angela and Hannah. Please rethink the custody issue and return custody of Morgan to her grandmother, or at the very least allow her more liberal, unmonitored visits. It will be for the benefit and the best interest of both children. They don't care about the best interest. The courts don't care. Do you know that somebody from CASA told me best interest has gone out the window? If you don't feed the system, you don't count. There was a report submitted by the Department of Children and Family Services that a couple who monitored my visits, who wished to remain anonymous, said that I had a hard time keeping Hannah under control so that I could attend to my younger grandbaby. There's only one couple who monitored my visits other than the prospective adoptive parents who were basically at that time, we were, I really want, at that point, I was happy to have joint custody. I just wanted her to have us all in her life. I would never want to take her away from them because she is bonded with them. We were her primary bond. We were her original bond. She then formed a secondary bond, but she's been with them so long that they have become mommy and daddy. She's been adopted, and yes, now that is her primary bond. So never in a million years would I take that child away from them. I wouldn't do that to my grandbaby. Let me read this. This comes from the only couple that supervised our visits. It has come to my attention that a report submitted by DCFS stated that an anonymous couple who monitored Angie and Hannah Lussier's visits with Morgan, Angie's granddaughter and Hannah's sister, stated that Angie often couldn't attend to Morgan as she was busy handling an out-of-control Hannah. I want to be clear, as my wife and I are the only couple that monitored Angie's visits other than, I'm sorry, I can't mention their names. I will not mention their names because, again, this is not, my fight is not against this couple. My fight is against the system. Other than the couple who has now adopted my grandchild, who I feel like was my child because I was the only mother she ever knew, and it came to be that I felt I had given birth to her myself. I couldn't have loved her more. I want to be clear, as my wife and I are the only couple that monitored Angie's visits other than the other couple that adopted her, that we did not make any such comment to DCFS, and that has not been our experience with Angie, Hannah, and Morgan. We met with Irina Cole, supervising social worker who supervises Deborah Manor, last year and gave Angie glowing reviews, as Sylvie Di Toledo can attest to. Again, Sylvie is the clinical director of Grandparents as Parents. I also have a letter. I was a therapeutic foster parent, and one of my foster children looked me up on Facebook. Her name is Alicia. My name is Alicia Bagley. I am a former foster child of Angie Lussier's. Living with Angie was a wonderful part of my life. Social services only placed me with her while they searched for a children's home for me. A group home, residential, kickbacks, that's what they get. Angie was one out of 2 foster homes while I was in custody of child services that showed me real love. The real love I never had. She asked to see me while I was at the children's home. She was granted only 1 visit, and she made it on the date it was set. She cried with me. I hated I never got to see her again after that. It wasn't her choice, but child services. She has spoken to me about her granddaughter, Morgan, and in tears several times because I know Angie and the woman she is. I can say honestly, Morgan could never have a better home than Angie's. Angie has expressed the love she has for her, and you can hear the hurt she is carrying. Angie is a good woman. I would never lie in the matter of a child being placed anywhere or lie for anyone. I know how the system works, but lying is dishonest. This is also notarized. Those are the letters. I did a little research. When she first was taken from us and became chronically ill, I attributed it to the change in environment, and I felt maybe as new parents often do, as I did as a new parent, overdressed my baby, kept her too warm. That wasn't the case. What I found out was this. Specialists have identified 2 categories of stressful experiences. Acute stress is defined as sudden, intense onset. Example, loss through death or prolonged separation of a significant person in the child's life, grandparent, caregiver, sibling. And when it's ongoing, it has the most significant and detrimental effects on children, including changing brain chemistry and lowering resistance to disease. And that is exactly what the doctors told this couple, is that her immune system is no good. Well, it was perfect when I had her. National Center in Youth Law, Keeping Siblings Together, Past, Present, and Future, by Emily Kernan. I'm just going to read the key points here. When we split up foster children, while these weren't, my older grandbaby was never a foster child. She was never in the system. I'm not trying to get money from ASFA. And by the way, ASFA, I believe, was a well-intentioned law. We had foster children floundering not being adopted because their foster parents, as good as they were, would lose their funding. So they passed this law, CAPTA and ASFA, so that they could keep their money and provide these older children with permanency. But what happened was, it didn't matter how old the child was, as long as the department adopted them out, they got bonus money. So, babies are easier to adopt. They're not helping the older kids, they're neglecting them. That's why they're hanging themselves. They're being abused and neglected by CPS. They're out recruiting babies from 0 to 3 years old because it's easier to adopt them out and make their bonus money. The more they traffic them, the more money they get. When we split up foster children from their brothers and sisters, we are taking away the only connection they still have to the people they love. The pain literally drives children crazy. My child already has challenges. I'll also tell you that she is so gifted. She's what you would call gifted disabled. I would call her, as somebody else mentioned, or they had coined the phrase, severely gifted. You would not believe the artist that she is. Her singing voice is fantastic. She is smart. She's a smart aleck, but she is so smart. She is awesome. Awesome. I wouldn't want a perfect child. I want an intelligent child that can grow up and meet this world head on and handle it. And that's what my granddaughter is. One of the most common positive outcomes cited as associated with joint placement is greater placement stability, meaning that children who are placed with their siblings tend to experience fewer disruptions in their placements. Yeah. Siblings who are separated at any point during their time in the foster care system are more likely to exhibit problematic behavior than those who are not separated. They also show more positive dealings with peers, fewer emotional and behavioral problems, and better functioning at school. They also cite the obstacles to joint placement as being not enough foster parents or relative caregivers that are willing to take them together. Hello, that's all I wanted. I know what it's like to lose a sister. It's very painful to grow up that way. And despite of what my older granddaughter has gone through, she's doing very well. She, as I said, now she's been diagnosed correctly. She's on far less medication. And she is academically at the top of her class. She is, as I said, gifted. She may be a little bit smart alecky, but she's got Asperger's. As far as she's concerned, she deals with people on the same level, whether you're 5 or whether you're 50. Okay? That might be a problem for some adults. Sorry. Should my grandbaby have been taken away because of that? Should all infants be removed from households that have, quote, disabled children? The judge told me he didn't think he was setting a precedent here. Historically, the problem of sibling separation in foster care has existed for decades and has unfortunately become commonplace for many in the field of child welfare. This presents a problem when it comes to placing siblings in foster care because separation of siblings has essentially become the accepted norm. Therefore, in implementing a policy such as California, Section 16002, a question that must be addressed is how to educate caseworkers, administrators, foster parents, and others about the significance and priority of siblings in care. Even more challenging is the question of how to do this without making them feel as though their work over the past years and their justification for separating siblings is being attacked. Oh, who would want to attack a lying, perjurious social worker or their supervisors or the board of supervisors or anybody involved in this, including some of the attorneys who throw cases, all right? Simply convincing child welfare professionals to give the issue of siblings in foster care higher priority is not the only institutional barrier that must be addressed. Elizabeth Lightfoot notes the increased incidence of social policy borrowing on a national scale. This trend has the potential to play a very significant role in the lives of siblings in foster care. More innovative approaches that challenge the traditional policies and practices that have proven to be ineffective in maintaining sibling relationships are critical. As soon as she was removed, I went to Irina Cole. We spent about 2 hours together. And by the time we were done, she was in tears. And she said, I need to rethink the way I judge a case based on what somebody else reports. I don't know what happened, because all of a sudden she went right back. I guess Deborah Manor must have told her another lie, or there was some other kind of corruption or greed going on. I don't know, but it smells funny. Like Judge Judy says, if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. It's not right. I love my grandchildren. It was my job to take care of them. My daughter asked me when she was first pregnant that if she could not take care of her children or her child that she was pregnant with, would I adopt? And I said I would demand it. These are my grandchildren. If it wasn't for me and my daughter, they would not exist. But this is an existential issue that I'm bringing up. I'm not saying that this is the be-all, end-all, but it is true. If it wasn't for me and her mother, she wouldn't exist. Of course, it wasn't for her father. She wouldn't exist either. But if it wasn't for her uncle, it has no bearing. Not to mention the fact that I was the only mother she ever knew. It's been hell these last 2 years. I have had a fight to wake up in the morning and take care of my older grandchild and give her the love that she deserves. They diminished my capacity. Will I have social workers at my door now because I'm admitting that it diminished my capacity? Let me tell you, I'm better now. Because the fight has kept me alive. And whatever happens with my grandchild, I will now go on to fight for others, because this is wrong. This is the worst violation of human rights in this country. Tax problems, economy problems. How about the rights to our family? How can they take that away? King Herod did it. King Herod is alive and well and living in Chatsworth and so many other departments around the country, taking children away from loving families. I've never been accused of abuse. I had no case. I had no voice. Had I committed a crime, I might have had a voice. I have actually thought, what could I morally do? What crime could I morally commit to give me a voice? All I can do is write. All I can do is start an organization called Shame on Them. You can contact me at shameonthem@hotmail.com, and we can fix this. And we will report on every social worker, every judge, every government official who is lining their pockets with our children's lives and mental and emotional well-being. We are not going to lie down. You are not going to kill us. You may hurt us, but we will rise. And the time is near, so you better find yourself another job pretty quick. Deborah, Irina, Octavia Johnson, Javier, Oliva. You, Javier, who told me, but you don't know what we can do. I have dealt with Xavier Slavsky's office, Lisa Mandel, his right-hand woman. She can't help me, except for with CPS, which she can't help me anymore because now the baby's adopted. I have written to Hanson Clark in Michigan because he was trying to stand up for some issues. He then sent a letter to Howard Berman, who then directed me back to Xavier Slavsky. I traveled to Sacramento in July because I couldn't wait till September 28th when the national protest was happening, because my grandbaby was going to be adopted in September. Of course, she was adopted in August because they sped it up and didn't even tell the baby's attorney, who had advocated for us from the beginning. They didn't even listen to the baby's attorney. They only listened to CPS. Why is that? Leslie Heimov, head of Children's Law Center, Los Angeles, I don't know how you can stand it when your people, who are probably the only objective advocates for these children, are being ignored. He stood there advocating for us, and the judge ignored him completely and did what county council wanted him to do and what the other couple's attorney wanted him to do. It didn't matter about all this evidence that I read to you. I filed a 388, took over a year to get the answer that, yes, I did deserve a full hearing. And when I hired an attorney and the judge ignored the baby's attorney, he withdrew my appeal. So now where am I? Now I don't even have anything to appeal. All I can do is hope that the people who have my grandchild, her uncle and aunt, who is now her mommy and daddy, who are taking good care of her, who love her. And I just want, at this point, I just want us to be a trusted part of the family, of her life. No monitors. Why? Why should I need a monitor? I've never done anything. And I don't judge them for whatever he's been convicted of. As I said, he's her uncle. If I wasn't here, it would be right that she was with him. And now at this point, she has to stay with them because she's been there too long, and I'm not going to do that to her. I just ask, why not some joint custody? I'm happy to play anyway. I'm the one bending here. I'm the one who's reached out. I'm the one who should have been wearing an orange jumpsuit every time I went to pick up or with a monitor to pick up my grandbaby. That's how I felt. I am guilty by CPS for being a grandparent. That is my crime. Thank you for listening.